Anybody who watches this channel knows that I love tech. But damn, it was fun being a dinosaur. Welcome to the Drunk Linux User. I'm Len. I am the Drunk Linux User. And what am I talking about today? Well, I'm doing one of those old man rants, I guess. And part of the reason for that is I was asked a very simple question not too long ago, and I didn't have a very, very simple reason. I mean, I kind of condensed it, but it still isn't a very good reason. The question was, I'm trying to do something with this file, and I can't figure it out because it's just too darn hard. All I'm trying to do is cut a segment of a video here, but I've got to go through all these hoops, and it just doesn't make sense to me. And all I want to do is a fade in, a cut, and a fade out. And this is a very intelligent person. And they're using an online service, and when they've tried downloading software, it's even more confusing. So it made me think about how things used to be and how things are now. Everything right now is instant gratification. As soon as you hit a button, within a second or two, you're going to have what you want. And before that, it never used to be that way. Now, a long time ago, and I do mean a long time ago, I'm not that young, we used to do things a lot differently, and our minds were geared more towards learning something by repetition and memorizing, and we'll get to that in just a second. I'm going to go to this article right here from Easy Tech Seniors, and it's 16 reasons why the elderly struggle with technology. A lot of this I do not subscribe to, and I'll let you go through the notes or the list yourself, but I don't get that part of it. But if you scroll down and you start looking at real world people talking about real world struggles, I think you'll have a better understanding of why people tend to have difficulty as they've gotten older with the new technology that's been coming out. Now, I'm not saying the new technology is bad. There's some really great and cool stuff, but like what happened with me just the other day, I've been using Shotcut for a long time. I made a video about Kdenlive. I said that Shotcut didn't have exportable chapters. I thought the markers that were being used in there were simply to help you with your schedule, with your setting up your scenes, you know. And somebody pointed out to me that was available in Shotcut as well recently. Well, I didn't know that because it wasn't intuitive. There wasn't anything that just leapt out and said, hey, do this to export. Or I'm not really sure what the answer is for this, right? We want to have all the bells and whistles. And if you want to do something more than just check your email, browse around for what's on sale or things like that, life gets more complicated. Now, I do subscribe to the idea that the struggle develops new skills, okay? I do believe that. But most people don't want to have to struggle. And even though software manufacturers like Mac OS has gotten really good at trying to make things really, very simple, there's still this learning curve that doesn't really seem natural, okay? This article talks about the 10 important differences between brains and computers, and I think this is where we kind of went like this as a society. We have the society that kept going on its same old track, and we have this new society that has veered off, and starting from the younger generations up. Now, granted, I didn't really get into computing until computers. I was in my 20s, which would have made it like the early 80s. I had a strong desire to learn. Most people didn't. Most people just wanted to push buttons, get answers, and move forward. They weren't as, I guess, obsessed with how things work as I did. But the brain does use a different method of processing information than what a computer does. And this article, I'm sorry, that should have been way up here, is Why Your Brain Isn't a Computer, put out by Forbes. Again, good article and worth looking at. This is interesting. I don't think you can really see that too well. I think it's supposed to be blue matrix hieroglyphics, but there's a system called Ternary computer systems, which is really interesting because the standard computing process works on ones and zeros. Yes, no. True, false. And this brings in a different way of looking at it, as there's yes, there's no, and maybe we should look at something else. So this is a little bit different and may be able to give better results, for example, on searches or working with data, for example. So it's interesting to know that there are people out there who are starting to understand that the information we're looking for or the processes we're trying to perform are not always ones and zeros, yeses and nos, trues and false. So I think there's something interesting coming down the line. Can't wait to see that. Now, this is the dashboard of a 1970 Cutlass. Even though it has a few, dials up there for speedometer, tachometer, things like that, and a radio, it's simple. You could put the key in the thing, you could turn it on, run it, drive it, park it, and there wasn't like 15 gazillion things going on at one time. You didn't have screens giving you GPS. You used a map. Okay, if you didn't know where you were going, you looked at a map or you took a map with you, and then you responded accordingly. Your mind was conditioned to think about what you were doing and where you were going, as opposed to just listening to, in 1,000 feet, turn right. Turn right. It's nice. I like the technology. I use that technology too. But I also remember having to think for myself. And I think we have given up a lot of that thinking for ourselves kind of mentality. I'm going to kind of go through some of the differences between then and now. This was a pretty standard TV of its day. It had 13 channels. It had a UHF, the 13 major stations. Well, actually, they were 12. Are up at the top. The UHF, the U there, the dial was down there from below. And if you happen to live in a large city, you might have multiple UHF stations to choose from. You could adjust the contrast, the brightness. You could turn it on and off. There was no remote control. You got up off your butt. You walked across the room. You fiddled with the tuner. You might have to adjust the rabbit ears. You had to change the volume. Nobody thought twice about this. When we got remote controls, at first, it was that's just being lazy. I mean, that was the mentality back then, okay? And now it's 3-4 remote controls to operate your TV, your stereo, or your sound bar, or your DVD player, or your satellite box. This worked. Now, this was a standard phone back in the 1960s and 1970s. You stick your finger in the hole where the number was, and you dialed it to the right. You can see where the indentation is on that little silver thing on the right-hand side down here. We memorized phone numbers, or we had a phone book that we listed numbers in for the ones that we didn't call that often. Again, we were using our brains more. We weren't relying on other things to tell us what to do. Now, if you happen to have a few extra coin in your pocket, and you had that ability to be able to upgrade, you could get one of these guys, push button, and this is where you got the do 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 do, like you hear on your phones now. This one you would just hear. I saw a video recently about two teenagers trying to figure it out. It took them about 2 or 3 minutes. So, where did we get our information? If you were lucky enough, you had a set of encyclopedias, or if you went to school, the school had different sets of encyclopedias. There was World Book, Britannica, there was a bunch of them, okay? And you can see down here that they were all alphabetically listed. So if you wanted to learn about bicycles, you would pull out the B book, and then you would go alphabetically, and your mind would be searching for that. It was a hunting expedition. It was looking for the information that you needed. You would read that information, and you'd write your notes and start your paper with that. Wikipedia be damned, I still think these are really cool. If you needed to learn how to spell something, if you didn't know it right off the bat, we use these. These are called dictionaries, and they're usually about that thick if they're a good one. It gave you not only the spelling, it gave you the definitions, and there's usually more than one, how to pronounce it, and you could learn a lot from a dictionary. So, we used to ride bikes. People still ride bikes, but this used to be a major mode of transportation for a lot of kids. A lot of kids now are just kind of like sitting on their butts playing video games on their phones or using their Xbox and stuff. Most of the time, kids were outside. They were doing something. Their mind, their body had learned to work together to establish balance, pattern recognitions, knowing don't aim towards that cliff, or don't go down this steep hill because it's too steep. You developed a sense of knowledge about yourself and your terrain with this. More kids should be out riding bikes. Or what did kids used to do for fun? Well, we used to go out and play. And if you had a playground nearby, there were swing sets, there were slides, there were jungle gyms, there were these merry-go-round things that you could spin around in. And I didn't show it on purpose, but there was a picture showing some of the stuff that I used to play on when I was a kid back in the 1960s, and the title read, "When Playgrounds Were Deadly." I'll be honest with you, in all the years that I went to school, I never heard of anybody dying on a playground. They may have broken an arm or a leg or something like that, but usually that was from horsing around too much or just pushing yourself to a limit that you weren't used to in the first place. So, what does this have to do with technology? Well, the thing about technology is I honestly don't believe that today's technology represents what people are designed to be. I think that what we are trying to do is we are trying to adapt to a new world of technology, and there are going to be people that no matter how much they are given this information aren't going to get it as well as others. Some people are going to be predisposed to this, and their mind is going to think, okay, to me this is logical. To somebody else it's like, I don't get it. So yes, technology is great and fun and wonderful, but you know what? It really was fun being a dinosaur. So let's leave this on our words of wisdom. Don't drive drunk, don't drink and drive, don't go to eBay, Amazon, or use MS Ed Shopping all buzzed up thinking you're going to buy the latest, greatest, and coolest stuff, because you're probably not. In the meantime, bottoms up, later dudes.